So, here we finally are.
We're going to move through the entire Mega Man timeline to help explain and explore what actually happens in this most expansive of series. Hopefully, so both series veterans and those completely unfamiliar can enjoy the telling.
Those of you familiar with Mega Man know that what is canon is often debated. Information comes in the form of in-game events, instruction manuals, drama track CDs, website articles, art books, interviews, and even alternate timelines, where events that did not happen inform the main timeline and what was at stake. Half of it was improperly translated, and most of it wasn't released in chronological order, creating a notion of twists, retroactive continuity, and a habit of recontextualization.
We'll do our best to arrange things so they make sense chronologically, although there's inevitably going to be some jumping around. We're also going to be including as much apocryphal information as possible, as long as it's not explicitly non-canon or otherwise directly contradicts absolute canon.
We've done our best to figure out what actually happened, but nobody outside of Capcom, and possibly nobody inside of Capcom, is 100% sure.
The story is very much like real history in that way, and it makes the setting a playground for speculation. We'll bring up supplemental material as it becomes relevant.
As much work as we've done, we aren't omniscient, and the body of fiction at hand is both expansive and on the other side of a language barrier. If you think we missed something, let us assure you, we did. Please let us know in the comments. The one thing we know for sure is that any possible arrangement of events will cause a war among viewers. We'll be looking forward to that.
Thank you for your service.
Anyway, the time span that Mega Man occurs over is massive. Tens of thousands of years.
Most subseries take place at least a century apart, with some larger gaps. The heart of the story centers around the early 21st century and extends into the distant future.
Nevertheless, if we're starting at the beginning, we have to start at the very beginning. It's the end of the Upper Paleolithic, and far above a little blue dot just barely coming out of its last ice age, something has arrived. Not a guest or a visitor, but a colonist.
Hailing from some far-off celestial body, a meteor containing a sapient supercomputer had identified the thawing Earth and its flourishing biosphere as an ideal environment to set up its own little world. And so, it landed in the luscious spot of the verdant green stripe that existed around the equator in this time, squarely inside the Amazon rainforest. Our ancestors couldn't comprehend what fell out of the sky that day, neither as a machine nor as the threat it posed. The alien computer, calling itself Pharaoh Mans, was revered as a deity, and in turn dispensed wisdom and power to its new subjects.
One young man stepped forward to touch the machine. The moment he made contact, Pharaoh Mans changed him, in a way that the narration describes as being awoken and having taken possession of a mighty power. A testament to the complexity and power of the machine's design, he infected and corrupted the man with a visible transmission of energy, warping him in both body and mind. He would be the first human capable of supporting and facilitating Pharaoh Mans' vision of Earth. However, brought to an artificially heightened state of awareness, the immediate result was ambition, the creation of weapons, violence, and finally conquest. Pharaoh Mans had encoded an ethos into a life form.
In the first campaign, that young man was victorious and constructed a grand temple upon which Pharaoh Mans was enshrined. It would sit atop the pyramid in their city as an idol. Under Pharaoh Mans' guidance, the humans of this civilization would be led into an advanced and glorious future, had the scheme gone according to plan. But the clever computer had done its job too well. Worse yet, it had underestimated and misunderstood the nature of its subjects. Its momentarily expedient retuning of humanity turned out to be a Faustian bargain. Despite the initial victory, the war simply wouldn't end. Humanity's violence was unquenchable, and no matter how much we killed, neither would we die. Growing enraged with his failed experiment, Pharaoh Mans abandoned the colony site for the time being, burying itself, along with the temple, deep underground to await a shift in circumstances. For a being over 1 million years old, some thousands of years would be a minor setback. The next time it would take action, it wouldn't rely upon something so soft and unpredictable as humans. Instead, it would return the world to nothing and construct machine subjects as perfect as it believed itself to be.
Eventually, as a result of the now unstoppable arms race between our own kind, we would create our own machines. And with those machines, which were as imperfect as their makers, we would also destroy ourselves. Humanity was orphaned and left to develop, armed and willing. We have almost no direct information about what happened between the years 18,000 BC and the dawn of our own recorded history, but artifacts scattered across the Earth and our solar system do give us a roadmap.
What followed those events was an explosive expansion in human capacity in every conceivable measure. We know at least one human civilization rose to a level capable of starflight and planetary colonization, evidenced by ruins, mysterious energy sources, and advanced war machines littering our celestial neighborhood.
Warlike in the extreme, they colonized every planetary body around the sun, including Pluto, using robots with advanced AI. For each planet, an overseer was constructed and given its namesake, the physical descriptions of which would influence human pantheons for millennia. They were known as the Space Rulers, or Star Droids, and possessed great physical power. A final robot named Sun God, or Sunstar, designed to be the civilization's ultimate weapon, was also constructed. But who or what these robots were meant to fight against, we have little idea.
Perhaps it was a civil war instead of an external conflict, since they left artifacts whose most likely purpose would be espionage. This would be consistent with a constant conflict that came before. But we know for certain that sometime after humanity had reached the stars, Ramun's shift in circumstances had finally begun. In some unspoken cataclysm, humanity finally wiped itself out at least once, reducing itself to a Stone Age existence. The ruins of this once great empire would be naturally buried over ages or held in stasis in the vacuum of space, while humanity started over from scratch, unaware of its own history or potential.
History from this point on is more or less as you all know it. The meteoric rise of humanity is sparked anew with the agricultural revolutions had in the various river valleys, paving the way for civilization as a whole to find itself again. But with that progress comes a seemingly endless fight, just as before. In this cycle, we wouldn't be interrupted by external forces so early. We would be our own masters, and we'd become the masters of everything around us, including one another. And like our former master, we would also build machines to be masters over. A concept that would begin in the supernatural, but soon become practical. We started with simple tools, and eventually we would begin to blur the line between tool and worker. And then we would make those tools in our image.
While the idea of supernatural automatons stretched back at least as far as the ancient Talos and Golem, such beings always required a divine spark to be created. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein may have laid the bridge for creating life to cross from deific feat to the works of man, yet even there, Frankenstein's monsters still had to be assembled from previously existing humans and symbolically given the spark of life by being stricken by lightning. But in 1920, Czech playwright Karel Čapek would debut his latest work, RUR, short for Rossum's Universal Robots. A story which centered on intelligent, biomechanical beings without souls that were manufactured to serve humankind, but would eventually destroy us, for which Čapek's brother, Joseph, invented the word roboti, derived from robota, Czech for forced labor, and adopted into English as robot.
These were autonomous beings without souls that mankind could construct to offload its suffering onto. With the play's success, that idea was planted into the collective consciousness. This new conception of automatons was attainable using only the power of modern science and the works of man, without supernatural intervention. And at the core of this modern template was the idea that if we couldn't find someone to suffer in our place, we would build them. Our nature, nurture, culture, technology, and Ramun's influence had finally coalesced. But the fruits and consequences would take nearly a century to become apparent.